The Search Recipes feature is a fantastic way to familiarise yourself with the recipes in the system and also do things like copy or edit recipes and also add recipes to your favourites list. What you notice at the top of the Recipes tab is the New Recipes feature. So every month at least 10 new recipes are added to the system, and you can scroll backwards and forwards through these recipes by clicking on the left or right hand arrows. If you'd like to know what the name of the recipe is, simply hover over the recipe photo and it will show you what the recipe name is. You can also click on the photo of the recipe and it will then open up that recipe into a new page, so you can then view the recipe. So let's go back to the Search Recipe page for a moment. So at the top of the recipe page you'll also notice a Suggest a Recipe icon. So if you like a particular recipe and there's nothing similar in the system, by clicking on that icon you'll be able to send us an email requesting any type of recipe that you would like us to then review and add to the system. So we would then forward that on to our dietitians and nutritionists to develop a recipe that would be suitable for the program. So to use the Search Recipe function, you've got a number of different options. So you can search by a name, by dietary option, by recipe region, or by mealtime. You can also search by a mixture of these options. So the first thing we'll do is we'll select breakfast. So let's just have a look for different breakfast recipes. So by selecting breakfast and clicking on search, it will bring up all of the breakfast recipes available in the system. You can also search by recipe regions. So if I only wanted to have a look at French recipes, I could click French, or you can click multiple. So if I wanted to have a look at French and German, and I would then click on search. And it will then show me just French and German recipes. Alternatively, I may want to search by a dietary preference. So if I only want to see gluten-free recipes, or perhaps gluten-free recipes that don't have seafood, I would select those two options and click search. So all these recipes would now be gluten-free without seafood. The other option you have is to search by word. So I could search for the word banana, and it would then look for any recipes that have the word banana in the recipe title or in the ingredients. So I've then got a list of my banana recipes. Now you can also use these functions in conjunction with one another. So if I wanted a banana recipe that was gluten-free, that came from Western or Australian region for breakfast, I could select multiple different options. So once I've selected all those options, I would then click search, and I would then receive a list that matches my requirements. Now the other options you have once you've searched for your recipes is you can view the recipe by clicking on the magnifying glass, and it then brings up the recipe for you. So here you can see all the nutritional data, as well as the instructions and also the ingredients. At the top of the View Recipe, you'll see there are a couple of other options as well. So I could add that to my favourites by clicking on Add to Favourite. I could click back to go back to the Recipes tab. I could print the recipe, and I can also copy and edit the recipe. So if I was to look at this recipe and perhaps I didn't like honey, I could now amend this recipe by clicking on Copy and Edit Recipe, and it would then open up the recipe for me with all the ingredients and all the information about the recipe that I can edit. So you can see here that it says Update Recipe. If I wanted to add additional ingredients, I could search for ingredients through the ingredient search option and add ingredients to the recipe, and I can also delete items. So if I click on remove honey, it removes it, updates the nutritional information at the bottom of the ingredients. And you can see here it's now named the cottage cheese and banana recipe by calling it Sonia's cottage cheese and banana recipe. So whenever you copy or edit a recipe, it will put your name in the front of the recipe to make sure that you know that it's your own recipe. Now I can also adjust the preparation time, the region, what meal times I'd like it to show in. So if I'm planning my meal planner and I want it to show up for breakfast, then I have to make sure breakfast is selected. If you don't want it to show up for any other meals other than breakfast, you can deselect the rest of those options. You can also add it to your favourites instantly. You can share it to the community, which means other users would be able to see it. And it will automatically keep the same recipe image. If you need further assistance with copying or editing recipes, then go to Add New Recipe on the right-hand menu and watch the tutorial on how to create a new recipe from scratch. So once you've finished updating the recipe, click on Save Recipe. And that recipe will now be shown in your My Recipe list on the right-hand side. So you can see here, Sonia's cottage cheese with banana and honey drizzle. The tick shows that it's part of my favourites. The magnifying glass means I can view it. The pencil means I can edit it, so if I wanted to make further changes. And if I no longer wanted this recipe in my list, I could click the cross and delete it. So let's go back to the search recipe page for a moment. So we've already used the view option. The copy edit you can also access directly from the search recipe function. So you don't have to view the recipe first to be able to copy and edit it. You can simply click on that icon. And the same with add to favorites. Whilst you can add it to favorites whilst you're viewing the recipe, you can also add it to favorites while you're in this screen here, simply by clicking on the gold star. If at any time you wanted to remove any items from your favorites, you can do it two different ways. You can click on the tick and it will automatically remove your recipe from the favorites. Or on the right hand side, you can go to My Favorite Recipes at any time to view your entire list of favorite recipes. And from this list, you could click the Remove button and remove any of your favorites. So the favorites feature is a really great way to use, as I've already said, with regards to preparing and planning your meal planner much quicker and easier. So take a bit of time, familiarise yourself with the recipes in the system, add them to your favorites, and you'll be set to go.